Alright, welcome back to part 2 of this episode of the Review Space. This is going to be the part 2 of Top 100 Video Games by Metascore, according to ListChallenges.com. So we already did number 1 all the way up to 20, and this is the continuation. Part 2, we are going to try to go through, number 21 all the way up to 40, depending on how much we can finish here. Alright. So, to continue, we left off with number 20, so now the next one is number 21, Top 100 Video Games by Metascore. This is number 21 on the list from ListChallenges.com. Number 21 is Tekken 3. Hey! This one kind of caught me off guard. Tekken 3 is a highly reviewed game. You know, this is one of the most critically acclaimed games of the fighting game genre. One of the most critically praised games of fighting games. This one came out in the late 90s, and this one came out as a PS1 exclusive. I mean, I guess you could say, well, it came out on the arcades, but as far as the home consoles, it came out on the PS1, and it was a huge hit. It was the third installment in the Tekken franchise, and the Tekken was pretty good. Like, Tekken 1 was pretty good. It had good music, although the gameplay got kind of outdated like really quickly. Tekken 2 was kind of a solid like sequel to Tekken 1, and the storyline kept building and building. And then by Tekken 3 sort of switched it up. They added a few different characters, although they were pretty much just like newer, younger versions of the characters they already had previously. So they included a Jin Kazama, who is the son of Kazuya, and he looked just like Kazuya. He looks very similar to him. He's like a younger version of him. Very similar moves. It was almost like a palette swap, you know what I mean? They just wanted to include somebody younger and somebody that looks a little bit different. Instead of the Kazuya, instead of, I think it was Michelle was replaced by Julia at this point. They had a few new characters like an Eddie Gordo. Eddie Gordo is the capoeira Brazilian dude, and he was really popular, especially amongst the Western fan base, you know. And as cool as Eddie Gordo was, you know, he for a long time people saw him as like that breakdancing. He was the breakdancing black guy in Tekken, you know what I mean, in Tekken 3. And so he had a really cool style where he's flipping around, he's doing the capoeira thing. I mean, he's not breakdancing, obviously, but people look at it like, oh, he's doing almost like flare-looking moves and almost like breakdancey type moves, even though he was doing a capoeira. And it was really accurate. That's what I loved about it. It was so like realistic, just the way that they showed it, at least like video game wise back in the 90s. And man, the graphics were on point. The music was pretty cool, although I still find Tekken 1's music, I thought Tekken 1's soundtrack was the best out of that initial like trilogy, you know, the first 3 games that came out in the 90s, Tekken 1, Tekken 2, and Tekken 3. I prefer Tekken 1's soundtrack out of all of them by far. But Tekken 3's soundtrack wasn't bad, you know, it was your typical like 90s, I guess you could say like sort of jungle influence, and I don't even want to say like drum and bass. What is that? Yeah, I guess kind of like a drum and bass techno kind of, you know, very 90s techno, very jungle and like rave music kind of thing. And Tekken 3 was a really good game. I can see why it would be like number 21. I can see why it would still be ranked really, really high. I feel like there's been better Tekken games though. Like I like Tekken 5 better, Tekken Dark Resurrection, and maybe even some. Well, Tekken Tag Tournament. Tekken Tag Tournament was a really good game. Like you know, it's basically just a tag mode of very similar to the Tekken 3 like engine and the Tekken 3 style. I believe that's where, you know, you can see the evolution between Tekken 3 and then Tekken Tag, the very first Tekken Tag that came out in the arcades, and then Tekken Tag Tournament that came out on the PS2 in 2000. Tekken Tag Tournament 2, I really enjoyed the one that came out on the PS3 and Xbox 360. You know, so I personally feel like there's been better Tekken games compared to Tekken 3. I can see why Tekken 3 is still like ranked really high, because when it came out, it was a very it became the highest selling Tekken game of all time. For many, many years. I think still to this day, like Tekken 3 is still the top selling Tekken game ever. You know what I mean? On the PS1, because the PS1 was such a successful console. I think the PS1 was the very first video game system to sell over 100 million, to reach 100 million sales, which is pretty insane. So that's why Tekken 3 was just so popular, and it was such a common game, and this PS1 exclusive or pseudo exclusive, it became a staple. It became like the top fighting game on the PS1. So Tekken 3 is great. This was like Namco really, really putting themselves on the map. Like Namco really made themselves like 3D fighting game legends up to this point. And then Soul Calibur would follow Tekken 3, which garnered even higher scores. So Tekken 3, I can understand that. I just feel like, again, going back to the whole nostalgia thing and the whole like in retrospect, Tekken 5 I think is better. Like, other Tekken games are better technically than Tekken 3. They got better graphics, more characters, even more combos and better gameplay, faster gameplay, and certain things that's just so likable about the other Tekken games. But Tekken 3, I guess you could argue that Tekken 3 was like the pinnacle of the Tekken series in many ways, because of its critical success, critical praise, and reaching that zenith, that pinnacle. In that, okay, you have a good game, Tekken 1 was good, and then Tekken 2 was good, and then Tekken 3 was like, wow, like, bam, they had great graphics, like, pretty good music, great gameplay, new characters, a bigger roster than ever before, the storyline kept progressing, and you got Ogre, and all these different characters. It was like a new, cool installment, but it felt like building up, and then Tekken 3 was like the part 3, it was like the Return of the King, like Lord of the Rings, like peak of the trilogy kind of thing. So Tekken 3 is a very good fighting game. I personally feel like there's better Tekken games. Like, I wouldn't include Tekken 3 in my, like, if I was to include like the top 10 Tekken games of all time. I'm not even sure if there are there even 10 Tekken games. There probably is. But I wouldn't include Tekken 3 as like my number one Tekken game ever. You know what I mean? So Tekken 3 is good, but I think because it was so good back then, people still look at that score and go, wow, it was great for that time, for that particular period. Although I still feel like other Tekken games have kind of eclipsed it a little bit anyway. Like Tekken 5 is better, Dark Resurrection is better, and Tekken Tag Tournament, and even Tag Tournament 2 is better than Tekken 3. So, I love Tekken, and Tekken 3 is a classic for the PS1, but I feel like this should be maybe ranked a little bit lower on the score, and replaced by like Tekken 5 or something like that. Okay, number 22. Number 22 is Mass Effect 2. There you go, Mass Effect 2. Great game. You guys know how I feel about this. This is my personal favorite in the Mass Effect series. Granted, I only played 1 and 2. I haven't really played 3 yet, and I don't really like feel like playing 3, but from everything I've heard about 3, like Mass Effect 3 was like the ending and like people kind of criticize it a lot. So, but Mass Effect 2 I really enjoyed it. It's kind of weird because I was looking at the scores, like I think I did the top 100. What is it? Top 100 PS3 games of all time, and I'm not even sure if Mass Effect 2 was included there. You know what I mean? Like, it's just really odd. This is supposed to be like the highest Metascore games and everything. But anyway, number 22 is Mass Effect 2. Great game. I enjoyed it. Cool storyline. Great characters. I love interacting with the different like crew ships on board because they got their own different quirks and different personalities. The whole dating, setting up a romantic thing between the your main character, the protagonist that you're controlling, and the other characters on board. And I like the gameplay, I like the action aspect of it, the third-person shooter aspect of it. There's some slight, I guess you could say some slight RPG elements, although it's more of an action RPG or a third-person shooter RPG than a real, like, hardcore grinding RPG, you know what I mean? It's a lot faster paced and it's a lot more action oriented, which I like. Mass Effect 2 I think is a pretty good game, a very good game. It's one of my top 30 PS3 games of all time, and I dug the characters. That's what I like about it. It's very charismatic, very sci-fi. Like, I love that science fiction traveling to different worlds. I love that. That whole, like, you could see shades of Blade Runner and shades of Star Trek and shades of I guess even Star Wars to a certain degree. Just that whole interplanetary, intergalactic, like, traveling and going on missions and shooting, attacking different aliens and creatures and things like that. It's pretty cool. So it being ranked number 22 is kind of a surprise. I didn't expect it to be here. I expected maybe Mass Effect 1, because I remember Mass Effect 1 being really highly critically praised. So Mass Effect 1 was, like, a lot of people will probably say, like, oh, Mass Effect 1 was the best. I personally felt like Mass Effect 2 was, that's my personal favorite. So it is kind of a surprise that it's on here, because, people tend to love the first one a little bit more. Number 23 is Zelda, the Twilight Princess. I had this game for like a cup of coffee. I bought it. I think I bought it for a friend. Like, I gave it away as a gift for the Wii. And so Twilight Princess is your typical Zelda game. I feel like it's more of the same, like, Zelda experience. I've never been the biggest Zelda fan of the 3D franchise. I love Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo, and I wish they would focus more on that style for the main consoles, that whole top-down point of view, because to me, that's what Zelda is, that top-down point of view, overhead view, and it's an action RPG, but it looks very old school, that classic 2D style. I love that about the Zelda series. I wish they would make more Zelda like that. I can understand why it's always 3D now, like 3D style, 3D polygonal, moving around in a big world. Twilight Princess, though, I never played it that much. You know what I mean? I only played it like I preferred, like, my friend playing it. You know what I mean? Like, he popped it into his system, and it was more of a gift, and I gave it away, and it was something that I didn't really want to play. I'm not a big into Zelda, at least not the 3D games. I love the the 2D style, but the 3D Zelda series I'm not really big into. And I feel like Ocarina of Time was the best in the series anyway. Twilight Princess, I don't care. I have no, not big into Zelda. So Twilight Princess, to me, I think is one of those overrated Zelda games that get pushed out there just because it's Zelda. Just because of the Zelda label, they have to really keep giving it high perfect scores, very similar to a Grand Theft Auto. Always a perfect 10, perfect 10, perfect 10, and it's like, oh God, when is it going to stop with this Zelda overhypeness? So number 24 is the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Elder Scrolls 5. Oh, Skyrim. You guys know how I feel about Oblivion. Oblivion to me was a completely buggy, bug-ridden game. I would have enjoyed Oblivion a lot more if it didn't have freezing issues. Granted, I played it on the PS3. I still have it on the PS3, and it's very problematic. It keeps freezing all the time. I'm not too big in the whole, like, slow-moving thing. I kind of enjoyed it on Fallout 3. I thought Fallout 3 was dope, but on Oblivion it was just kind of slow and just like I don't know. I felt like you should be a lot faster. Your character should be able to move a lot faster, but that's just the style of Elder Scrolls. I guess that's just the way it is. And with Skyrim, I'm not really interested in Skyrim. Like, I don't care. It got really high scores when it came out. That whole arrow to the knee, garbage, BS. Yeah, I really couldn't stand that. I thought I was really annoying when that became a meme back in the day. So, yeah, I know these Elder Scrolls games have a lot of praise. They have a big following. But when it comes to, like, RPGs and that first person, and not even first person, but that, that sort of pseudo action RPG, that kind of slower paced RPG, the style of Bethesda where they take it a little bit slower. I prefer the Fallout series a little bit more, you know what I mean? I prefer that better. I thought Fallout 3 was a pretty cool environment. At least the setting was pretty cool, like that post-apocalyptic thing. So with Skyrim, I don't care, you know what I mean? I'm not a big fan of the Elder Scrolls series. I think they look good. Like, the graphics look really, really good and lush and beautiful, and forests and trees, and just the environment looks really gorgeous. But aside from that, like, just the gameplay itself can be really, really boring. So, you know, I'm not interested. So number 25. Number 25 is Half-Life, the first one. Half-Life 2 I quite enjoyed. You know, Half-Life 2 was good. I remember the first Half-Life in the 90s. I don't know if I talked about this already, well, when it came out on the PS2, the top 100 PS2 games list. But this is the one that came out in the 90s as a PC game, you know. And I remember it getting really high scores back then when I was a kid. I never played it back then, but I would hear the people rave about it, like gamers and PC gamers, like, oh, this game is really awesome, like this is one of the best games ever on the PC. So Half-Life got really high scores, you know what I mean? It was a legendary, like, FPS sci-fi type of game, you know, on the PC. But I just never really got into it. I did enjoy Half-Life 2 though, and yeah, you know, it looks like a cool game. I wish I got a chance to play it back in the day, but I just never, you know, I wasn't a PC gamer when I was growing up in the 90s. Like, I was too young. You know, my family didn't have a high-tech PC that could play all these games, so I just never grew up on the original Half-Life. Number 26 is Zelda Windwaker, The Legend of Zelda Windwaker. This one came out on the GameCube. Again, you guys know how I feel about the 3D Zelda series. You know, I feel like they're very, very overrated. Again, overrated doesn't mean that it's a bad game. It's just, I'm just not crazy about it. Like, it's just something that I'm not into. It's for kids, it's for little babies and children and small, you know, like young people that's like 10 years old and younger is the demographic of Zelda, and girls, like women and stuff like that. So, you know, like, I prefer gritty action-adventure games. I prefer God of Wars and Devil May Cries and Bayonettas, and that's what I like. That's what I'm into. That's what I love. Something that's more gritty and for mature audiences. Zelda, the 3D series, to me, is very kiddified and very just dumbed down and simple. I don't care. I do not care. You know what I mean? So it being number 26 of all time, Metascore, you know, give me a break. I enjoyed way more games than Wind Waker. Alright, number 27. Number 27 is Gran Turismo, the first one on the PS1. You guys know how I feel about Gran Turismo. A very boring simulator series. A very tedious and just no excitement, no fun. Very sanitized and desensitized, and I'm not even sure if I'm using desensitized. It's very sanitized. Very, it's just completely dry. That's the best way I can describe Gran Turismo. Is a very dry, very empty kind of video game. The graphics look good. The graphics look good. Okay, the music is cool. Okay, it has good music, it has good graphics, but the gameplay is not what I expect in a racing game. I like fun, arcadey racing games. Kart racing games, street racing games. That's what I like. Gran Turismo is a simulator. It's a boring simulator. So I don't care. Give me a break. Number 28. Number 28 is Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. Wow. That's kind of surprising. Is that the highest rated Metal Gear game in this list? Holy. I think it is. It's the first Metal Gear game, the first Metal Gear Solid game in this list. Top 100 games by Metascore. Well, I like Sons of Liberty. I got the I think, is it Subsistence or Substance, whatever that one is, the upgraded version. That's the one that I have. I double checked on my collection. Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance, I think, is the one that I have. So I liked it. You know, I like the extra missions, the VR missions, I think they're called, the virtual reality stuff. You can sneak around, and you're going up against the CPU. You're going up against the computerized enemy, and it's very fun. I love that aspect about it. It's just that the main campaign, the main story mode, I just can't get into. I think it's so boring. I get so bored of it so quickly. You know what I mean? I like the first Metal Gear Solid a little bit better. I like Metal Gear Solid 4 a heck of a lot better. Metal Gear Solid 4, to me, is the best Metal Gear Solid game just because it was so well made and, you know, it was really fun to play from beginning to end. Sons of Liberty, you know, Metal Gear Solid 2, Substance, whatever, you know, they want to call it, is a very good game. It's just that, you know, it being ranked number 28 is way too dang high. I can't believe it's number 28. I would expect Metal Gear Solid 4, but, you know, and even the first Metal Gear Solid for the PS1, but the second one is, wow, that's wild. Number 29 is Baldurs Gate, Shadows of Amn. Baldurs Gate, I never played any of the Baldurs Gate series. I wish I did, because again, I didn't have that high-end PC. I never grew up on too many PC games back in the day. So, Baldur's Gate, I wish I got a chance to play it, though, back in the day. Number 30 is GTA San Andreas, alright. This one came out, the one from 2004, PS2 originally, but it also came out on other systems. Great game, you guys have heard me praise about it many, many times. It's a really fun, probably the pinnacle of the GTA series on the PS2, the original PS2 3D trilogy between GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. Yeah, this one is probably the best, just in terms of gameplay, size, scope of the game, and the amount of things that you can do. The music is not as good as Vice City, though. And speaking of Vice City, speaking of that, number 31. Number 31 right next to it is Vice City, yeah. So San Andreas and Vice City are neck and neck. What a weird coincidence that they're like right next to each other. That's kind of odd. You know, you want to make a list of the top 100 video games of all time, and yet you have Vice City and San Andreas next to each other. Like, that's just a weird coincidence. I would expect San Andreas probably to be ranked just a little bit higher than Vice City. Vice City is my personal favorite out of all of them, just because of the music and, you know, the 80s atmosphere and all that, the 80s soundtrack, new wave and all that. I love it. So Vice City, very cool game. I can see. It's really good. I mean, I don't know if it's number 31. Like, it's a great PS2 game for sure when it came out. 31 of all time. Maybe top 40, top 50. You know, so maybe it should be a little bit lower, I guess. Just because, like, again, San Andreas, gameplay-wise, improved it a little bit better, and. You know, so I mean, even the other ones, the other GTA games like GTA 4 and the episodes of Liberty City, and even GTA 5, GTA V, I think is there's more things to do there. So yeah, you know, but they don't have the charm of Vice City, so I can understand that they don't have the cool 80s nostalgic retro celebration of Vice City. So Vice City was a cool tribute to the 80s, I thought, and, you know, really cool game. Stylistically, it's one of the most stylish games ever released on any system. So it gets points for that alone. Gameplay-wise, it is kind of dated and kind of problematic. Like, you know, controlling the vehicles can be a little rough, so that, you know, that's kind of annoying. Number 32 is LittleBigPlanet. This is a big surprise. LittleBigPlanet is number 32? What the heck is going? What? LittleBigPlanet is a pretty good platformer, but I mean, number 32 of all time? Like, what? What the F? Like, WTF is going on? It's a good game. You know, it was a fun, like, PS3 exclusive, but number I don't know. I don't know. I like the customized, levels. That's cool. Especially on the Game of the Year edition. I remember getting the Game of the Year edition back in the day. I'm not sure if I still have this game. I think the one that I have now is the second one, LittleBigPlanet Part 2. Yeah. So I think I have that one, but I used to have the original LittleBigPlanet Game of the Year edition, and that was pretty cool too. It's just that, you know, being ranked number 32 is a little high. Like, I can't believe it. Above other platformers, above Super Mario World, above Sonic. You know, the original first couple of Sonic games, Donkey Kong Country 2, and all the other classic platformers that we've seen over the years. Like, this one is you know, because I feel like LittleBigPlanet, it's kind of a slow game, you know? It's kind of a slow title. It's not as fast. I feel like there's a lot of, it's a little plotting. Like your character Sackboy moves a little kind of slow too. Like the way he jumps, it's kind of slow. It feels like he's light, and the way that he would jump is so floaty. He's just I don't know. It's a good game. Like the little stages are pretty cool that have the different gimmicks, and the national gimmicks, like a Japanese Oriental looking stage and the Australian looking stage, and so on and so forth. The different looking levels, but it feels like you're just going through the different levels. You're just going through the motions. You're just going through each stage like some kind of like a tourist or a traveler. You don't feel like you're accomplishing anything. You're just going through the motions, trying to get to the next level, and there's no big payoff. All right, number 33 is Red Dead Redemption. All right, from Rockstar. Good game. One of my favorites on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. It's a good game. It's a really, really, really good game, I should say. I love the hunting animals thing is really cool. The whole like Western theme to it is really, really kind of a cool like environment. Although I guess I'm not a big fan of like it feels very romanticized. It feels like it's so they try to make it so like it's unrealistic. Like, I'm sure, like, this is not how people lived back in the day. It feels so, like, there's a story behind it, and this whole thing, it feels more like a movie, like a Western movie, as opposed to what really happened in the West. Like, when I play games like this, like these historical influence games, I would go, like, is that really accurate? Like, how accurate is this to what really happened back in the day? Like, was there really, like, a Western thing in the early 1900s, Because at that point, that whole era was like coming to an end. This was on its very last legs, and they even advertised that on the game, like, the West is coming to a close. The West is the Western life or whatever is ending. So, but anyway, great game. Great gameplay. I love exploring the massive environment, hunting the animals, and gathering their their body parts, I guess, to sell off and make a profit off of it. One of my personal favorites for sure. But it being ranked number 33, I guess that's a pretty high score. Number 33 is pretty high. It's a pretty well-made game. If you want something that's very similar to it on the PS2, you got to get Gun. I thought Gun was a very similar game. Gun was like an early version of like a Red Dead Redemption on the previous generation. So it's kind of interesting to me how I can almost guarantee that Rockstar saw Gun and they were like, oh, we got to make our sequel look like this. We can't make it like that crappy Red Dead Revolver. It has to be more like Gun. So that was probably there's probably an influence there. But Rockstar would probably never admit it, because it's like, oh, we stole ideas from another game that's not ours, another title that had a very similar like Western thing. But anyway, Red Dead Redemption was cool. I really enjoy it. It's one of my personal favorites on the PS3, and it's a solid game for sure. Number 34 is GT3 A-Spec. Overrated. Gran Turismo is super overrated. Very boring simulator. Number 35. Number 35 is Halo 2. I never played Halo 2. I never owned it on the original Xbox. I kind of wish I did, but alas, I never did. I like the first Halo, though. The first Halo, Combat Evolved, was really fun. I think it's because, like, the first Halo, I enjoyed it, but I didn't want to necessarily play any more of it. It's like, I beat it from beginning to end, and it felt good to complete it and finish it. But it didn't make me want to play the second Halo. Like Halo 2, like, it looks good, but I don't care anymore. It's like I don't care about the story anymore. Like, it was fun for what it was. Like, the first Halo was fun, so Halo 2 was like, whatever. Like, I don't care anymore. Like, I don't need any more Halo up to that point. So, but that's number 35, Halo 2. From what I remember, Halo 2 was known for having multiplayer and like kind of establishing Xbox Live as like this really must-have thing when it comes to multiplayer online. FPS, especially FPS, the first-person shooter genre, it really helped it become like a predecessor to the Call of Duty hype and the Call of Duty frenzy that would come in later years. The whole FPS thing where every FPS has to be like a Call of Duty style multiplayer and all that. Halo 2 was a part of that in the mid 2000s. You know what I mean? Halo 2 was a really popular title back in the day. Number 36 is The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Oh my god, yeah, the sequel to, or the follow-up to Ocarina of Time, I guess, on the N64. I remember when this one came out back in the day. I want to say maybe late 90s or early 2000s. Or, late 2000s, early 2001, I should say, was when this came out, because this came out in grade 8. When I was in the 8th grade anyway. I was around probably about 13 going on 14 years old when this was a big game. So, anyway, this was like Majora's Mask. I think they called it Majora's Mask in Japan. Majora's Mask. And I never really got into it. Again, I'm not interested in Majora's Mask. I was never crazy about the original Ocarina of Time. I thought it was okay. It was a good game for what it was. Like, technically, it was a well-made game, but I just wasn't crazy about it as far as storytelling. Not a huge Zelda guy, so I don't know what it is about Zelda. Like, I've mentioned that I'm not a big fan of it, and I'm not a big fan of the whole kiddie Nintendo thing. I'm not big into kiddified Nintendo games, but I think it's just because there's so much hype around it. There's so much. The fanboy following of Zelda kind of makes me mad. It makes me angry, and it kind of turns me off from the Zelda series. Like, there's this thing where everybody has to give it a perfect score. Perfect 10 after perfect 10, and I go, oh my god, this is pathetic. It's like, do these people even play other games? You know what I mean? Like, I much prefer any other games instead of, the Zelda series and Majora's Mask. I don't care. Give me God of War, give me DMC, give me Bayonetta, whatever. When it comes to action adventures, give me other titles instead of Majora's Mask, instead of Ocarina of Time, instead of Windwaker, instead of Twilight Princess. I don't care about the 3D Zelda games. Why can't they make a 2D Zelda game? Like a follow-up to A Link to the Past, or a game that's similar to Link to the Past, like the style from top-down point of view that's on the main consoles. I know they did it for the handhelds, and I can understand that. They had a bunch of the handheld 2D, like, top-down Zelda games. I remember those, but on the main console, I would probably be more of a fan of it if it was a top-down point of view, because I love that top-down point of view. That whole the animation, the graphics look really cool back then. They look good. They look so good. Like, visually, it just looked cool. It was really fun to play back in the day. I love Link to the Past. Link to the Past is like one of the best games that ever came out on the Super Nintendo. And just that, because of the style of the gameplay, the presentation, the 2D aspect of it helped the charm of that game, and the animation, the art design. It looked like a cartoon. It looked like an animated cartoon. But this Majora's Mask thing, and oh man. Anyway, number 37. Speaking of the overhead handheld games, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past and Four Swords. Yeah, I remember this one. This one came out way back in the day. Game Boy Advance. Yep. This is basically the handheld Link to the Past, and it's got the Four Swords, mode, I guess. But Link to the Past is a great title. One of my personal favorites on the Super Nintendo. And I forgot that it came out on the GBA. I remember this was back in the early 2000s when the Game Boy Advance was. They started putting out these, like, old school Super Nintendo not a remix, but like a re-release. These enhanced re-releases of some of the old Super Nintendo games. I think like Donkey Kong Country came out on the Game Boy Advance again, and some of the Mario Brothers came out, like Mario World. They were called like Mario Advance back then, but it's like the old Nintendo games, the old Super Nintendo platforming Mario games. Yoshi's Island. So they started re-releasing these. They started porting it. They started porting these versions on the Game Boy Advance back in because the GBA was basically like a 16-bit, or no, it was 32-bit, but it operated like a 16-bit system, like a 16-bit, like a Super Nintendo or a Sega Genesis, closer to a Super Nintendo than a Sega Genesis, obviously, but so Link to the Past, I mean, it was on the handheld. I'm just not a big fan of the rehashing a title, but at the same time, hey, you can't go wrong with Link to the Past. I'm not a big fan of the Game Boy Advance either, as far as like the original one that had the crappy, it didn't have a backlight back in the day, so that really ticked me off. I had to put up with that for years and years and years. I used to have the original Game Boy Advance, just the just the one with the basic no backlight, and then eventually I got the SP version. The SP version is much better overall. So, but anyway, Link to the Past is a classic, one of the best. I'm not a big fan of the music. Like, the audio quality on the GBA is pretty garbage. Like, it's pretty much a pile of ish, you know what I mean? It's just a pile of trash. I'm not a big fan of it. It sounds so crappy compared to what you would get obviously on television, hooked up your Super Nintendo to a TV. So the Super Nintendo had a much better audio output than the GBA, because the GBA is a very small system, and it's just this this crappy handheld audio, so it doesn't have that same crisp quality of the Super Nintendo on a TV. Number 38 is The Last of Us. Never played it, don't care about it, not interested in it. And I know it's a really highly lauded game on the PS3. It's a great exclusive on the PS3. I don't care. If I want a zombie game or a zombie style game, I want the more horror ones instead of the drama ones. Horror, action, that kind of thing, like a Dead Rising 2 or a Resident Evil series, Resident Evil 4 and 5 and 6 and all that. I prefer those much better than The Last of Us. Last of Us is like, it's like a drama. Because I've seen the cutscenes and I've seen gameplay of it on YouTube. So obviously I'm not oblivious to how it's presented, and that whole thing where it's like, oh, it's so shocking, it's so melodramatic, and it's so, oh, dilemma, and we're going through drama, and she got bit, and we gotta save her, and that whole drama thing to me is so lame when it comes to zombie movies. It should be horror and dread and terror and action. That's what zombie games should be, in my opinion. Number 39 is Madden NFL 2003. Never got into these Madden NFL games, so I don't care. Not a fan of NFL football, so, but Madden was pretty popular back in the day. You know what I mean? Madden was a very popular franchise on the PS2 in the early mid 2000s. So I remember that stuff getting a lot of attention back in the day, back in the mid 2000s. There was a time when Madden was like the only thing that people talked about. So similar to like Call of Duty. I remember everybody talking about Call of Duty. Call of Duty. Halo. Pokemon Go. Angry Birds. Well, back in the early mid 2000s, it was Madden. Madden this and Madden that and Madden this and Madden that. Number 40 is Portal 2. I have this on the PS3. I never played it that much, but the fact that it's number 40 of all time is pretty wild. Like, it's pretty cool. I never got too much into it as far as like playing it for long periods. I still have it, but I just don't have the motivation to keep playing it, because I kind of get bored with the puzzle style. I'm more into just basic FPS games. It's just whether it's multiplayer, death matches and stuff like that, and elimination matches and capture the flags. Portal 2 to me is it's a cool, like, little quirky little puzzle type thing, but one of these days I'll definitely try to get around to it. I'll try to play it a lot more than I did. it's just, yeah, I got other games to play, and when you're not motivated to play Portal 2, then it's just like, whatever. I'll play it one of these days, sometime in the future when I'm, extremely bored and I have nothing else better to do. Okay, so we got the up to 40. I think we can probably go up to maybe number 50. We'll try going up to number 50. I think we have a few more minutes left. I don't want to go over an hour with this, but we're up to about 40 minutes now, so we can probably do maybe another 10 in this list. Okay, so we're up to page 2 now. Number 41. Number 41 is World of Goo. Oh God, I don't think I've even heard of this game. This is probably one of those downloadable type games, maybe a mobile game or some kind of downloadable. So I don't know. I've never experienced it, so I have no comment. Number 42 is BioShock Infinite. I have it. Another game that I have on the PS3. I haven't played it yet, so I have no idea. I'm expecting some pretty cool things, but I've had it for a while. I still haven't played it. I really loved BioShock 1 and 2. So with Infinite, it could be a really good game. I'm expecting some pretty cool things from it, but I don't have my hopes way too high up because, I think I might have seen some spoilers here and there when it comes to BioShock Infinite. So at this point, I just have the game so I can play it sometime in the future, just to feel like I've at least completed the BioShock set, So from BioShock 1, 2, and then Infinite. Because Infinite looks really different from the other BioShock games. I'm not even sure if I like it. I'm not sure if I like BioShock Infinite as much as 1 and 2. I don't think I will. I highly doubt it. So my expectations isn't too high. I'm just expecting hopefully the graphics are good and the gameplay is good. I have it on the PS3. I just haven't played it. At least not yet anyway. So in the future. Number 43 is Command & Conquer. The first Command & Conquer. I never got into any of the Command & Conquer games. I believe they're PC titles. I'm not sure. I think this is an RTS, if I'm not mistaken, kind of like a StarCraft. But when it comes to RTS, I love StarCraft and Brood War, so that's the only RTS that I really got into. Number 44 is Final Fantasy 9, I think. Final Fantasy IX. Not big into the Final Fantasy console games and the RPGs. The only one that I really liked is Crisis Core. I thought Crisis Core was dope. And even the fighting game one, the Final Fantasy, the PSP fighting one, I think Dissidia is what it's called. Dissidia was okay, but Crisis Core I thought was a pretty good game. And so I never really got, crazy about these Final Fantasy titles. I'm not a big fan of them. All right, moving on. Number 45 is ISS Pro Evolution Soccer, basically, on the PS1. Not crazy about soccer either. Not a fan of footy, whatever the heck you want to call it. Whether it's the international, UK, England, European football or soccer here in North America. Whatever you want to call it, I'm not crazy about soccer, so I don't care, not interested, not into it. It is what it is. And it came out on the PS1, so it looks like an old game from way back in the day. Number 46, wow, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. And it's so funny that they have the Wii, logo here. Not even the 360 logo, not even the PS3 logo, which was infinitely more popular on those systems. When it came to the 7th generation, it was pretty obvious that people played Modern Warfare 2 a heck of a lot more on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. Probably the Xbox 360 more than the PS3, but the PS3 wasn't far behind, and the Wii itself is way behind when it comes to the Call of Duty video games. You know what I mean? But the Wii ended up getting a port as well. But so I guess there's different versions of it. But the one that I played was on the PS3. Modern Warfare 2 on the PS3 was a good FPS. It was a good shooter. I thought it was a fun enough game. I thought the campaign was pretty cool. Nothing groundbreaking, at least to me. I wasn't crazy about it. I wasn't in love with it or anything. And actually, when I got Modern Warfare 2 and I beat the campaign, I actually got rid of it pretty quickly. I ended up reselling it so I can, at least make some money off of it on Craigslist. I didn't want to hold on to it because I thought it was a good game, but it wasn't a keeper for me. It wasn't a keeper where I had to keep this game. It has to be in my collection. Nothing like that at all. I wasn't crazy about Modern Warfare 2, and I thought Modern Warfare 2 was a pretty good game. It was fun enough to play. Put it this way: between Call of Duty, especially the Modern Warfare series, between that and like Battlefield, I prefer Battlefield better, especially the Bad Company series. Bad Company 1, Bad Company 2. I like those a little bit better because they have slightly more charismatic characters. Alright, number 47 is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4. This is another, I think I talked about this on the, I think it might have been the top 100 PS2 games, I think. So, it got really high ranking. So, Pro Skater 4 is one of those Tony Hawk titles that was like really early on, like Pro Skater 2, Pro Skater 4. It's in that initial Pro Skater series that, I experienced the Tony Hawk series a lot later. So I ended up getting like Tony Hawk Project 8 and American Wasteland and Underground 2. So I was very late on the Tony Hawk series, and I feel like the games that I have or had back in the day are not as critically well received compared to the Pro Skater series. Like it's just not as good and not as well received. So I feel like I was a little too late and like I missed out on when Pro Skater was in its prime, kind of thing. When I see these high scores, but I'm satisfied with American Wasteland. I thought American Wasteland is okay. I think I still have Underground 2 somewhere. I really like Skate 3. I thought Skate 3 is a really fun game. So I when it comes to skateboarding games, that's what I'm happy with. Number 48 is Devil May Cry, the first DMC. Good game, I think it's in my top 100 not top 100, no, my top 30 PS2 list. This is one of my top choices for sure. Not as good as God of War or God of War 2 on the PS2, but pretty solid game. Very fun game to play, quite challenging, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. I thought it was a fun campaign, you know what I mean? From beginning to end, the characters look really weird. It's your typical like Japanese Capcom flavor in that they have these weird, wacky, strange-looking, bizarre characters where it's like it looks almost like they got the veins and veiny-looking characters. They got it's almost like their guts is attached to the sword and all that, and they just look really, really weird. Like imagine what's his name? Nightmare from Soul Calibur, like the way that he's designed is kind of like the whole Devil May Cry thing. That typical like Japanese fantasy fiction kind of like creepy looking characters with the spiky looking designs, and like even Dante himself from Devil May Cry has he's got this really big sword. You know what I mean? Like they're really obsessed with having that massive looking like super sword. I call it a super sword, where it's like Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. He has that big super sword, that massive blade, and it seems to be a typical trope in Japanese video games. So DMC was cool. I thought it was a cool game. I forgot the female character's name. She was kind of hot. I think she's like a blonde or something. Like she was pretty sexy. The only thing, too, with Devil May Cry is that I basically forgot what the storyline was all about. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even remember why you have to go through all this stuff. Like, I remember in the beginning you were in some kind of, like, bar? Or some kind of, like, there was it's like a bar, like some kind of drinking bar, or like a pub or something. I don't know. And that's, like, the beginning of it, and then there was a motorcycle, and then Dante has to fight some demons or something. I don't know. And then it's just kind of weird, and it's just kind of odd. I think the girl got kidnapped. It's been a while since I played the game, obviously. So, all right. Number 4. Hold on. How much time do we have left? Number 49. Okay. Number 49. Number 49 is Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, the first Modern Warfare from 2007. COD 4, basically. This one I never played, but this one got pretty high scores as well. no, you know, it's Call of Duty, so you know what to expect from that franchise. Man, I remember when these games come out, like COD 4 and Modern Warfare 2 back in 2009. It's kind of like the GTA thing. It's like Grand Theft Auto in that there's so many critics that give it such high scores, and I feel like it's because I think it's isn't it Activision to put out these games, so Activision would always, I don't know, like for some reason I feel like they pay off a lot of these critics. It's like, hey, we got a huge game, and so here's an extra whatever payola money, and so give our video game a really high score. Like, I always feel like that's the case. I always feel like that's what's going on when it comes to Call of Duty. Like, I don't have any evidence in this. I don't have any, like, proof that this is happening, but that's just my speculation, is that I think because Activision is such a big company, it's kind of like in Japan, where supposedly in Japan they have this big controversy about, like, you know, like the gaming reviewers and all that will give really high scores to certain games because they got paid off. Well, I think there's a very similar thing in the Western American market when it comes to video games, especially the AAA titles like a Call of Duty, where they give it such high scores because I'm sure some of those people were paid off. They were given some kind of benefit, some kind of bonus, some kind of perks if you give a high score to these titles. Like, oh, it's a perfect 10. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, perfect 10. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, perfect 10. Or not Modern Warfare 4, but COD 4 Modern Warfare, perfect 10. COD Modern Warfare 2, perfect 10. You know what I mean? So it's like this culture of like always giving it a perfect score to me is kind of shady, but that's just my speculation on it. Number 50. I don't know if should we end it off here? No, let's end it off with number... Well, we still have some time. We're still under an hour. Number 50 is Madden NFL 2002. Don't care about the Madden series, so number 51 is Chrono Cross. Okay. Chrono Cross, I think, is the... I want to say it's a follow-up to Chrono Trigger. I'm not sure if it's an actual sequel or just a... like a what do you call it? Like a spiritual thing where it's very similar to Chrono Trigger, but it's like almost like a spiritual successor, as opposed to, you know, it's almost like you have Demon Souls and then you have Dark Souls. So I'm not sure if Chrono Cross is like that because I've never gotten into Chrono Cross, but I heard Chrono Cross was a good game. You know, it came out on PS1. Chrono Trigger was a really good game on the Super Nintendo. It was a highly critically acclaimed game on the Super NES. And I never got into Chrono Trigger either. I think I tried to play it briefly on emulator, and I got really bored of it. You know, it just wasn't my cup of tea, the Chrono series. So, it's from Square, you know, Squaresoft. Back when, oh my god, yeah, back in the day they were called Squaresoft. I forgot about that. Yeah, back in the 90s they were called Squaresoft. And then they became Square, and then like Square Enix, I guess they merged with, I think Enix was another developer or company. So Chrono Cross I never really got into for the PS1. It just wasn't a title that I was interested in because I'm not crazy about these JRPGs when they dropped. You know, this was at a time when you have Final Fantasy VII, Chrono Cross. I think I have oh god, what is that one called? I got a couple of PS2, not PS2, PS3 downloaded games that were from the PS1 classics. I'm forgetting what it was called. Man. I know I have Legend of Dragoon. Legend of Dragoon is not a bad game, and the other one, I'm forgetting the title already, but anyway. Yeah, never got into Chrono Cross. Number 52 is Madden NFL 2004. Again, with the Madden series, like, you know, whatever. So, you know, not crazy about the Madden series. I'm not like, you know, when it comes to the EA Sports, I think I can skip those. You know what I mean? I'm not a big football guy. I'm not a football guy at all. So, but when it comes to football games, I do like the NFL Blitz, the one that came out on the N64. Alright, we'll try to end it off with number 56. Okay, so number 53 all the way to 56. Here we go. 53 is Gears of War. Oh, okay, Gears of War. Very good game. I thought it was a really solid game on the Xbox 360. A little overrated, I guess, but not as overrated as some of the other games, for sure. I eventually finished it after like a really long time. The final boss was pretty good battle. Like, it was pretty difficult. And I struggled with that. I remember getting owned by the final boss quite a lot of times. It took me a while to beat the final boss in Gears of War. Gears of War was fun, you know. A little bit overrated because it was kind of repetitive. Like, the gameplay was just kind of like the same thing over and over again. You have a cover system, you're running around, you shoot, cover system, running around, you shoot, and you just go through the motions, and then eventually you'll come across, once in a while, you'll come across a, what are those things called? The Berserkers, I think. Those really big ones that are very powerful, and you know, so you have to defeat those in a different way. You gotta have to keep your distance, and you gotta run away and all that. So the Berserker fights were pretty cool. They were very intimidating. And the campaign itself wasn't too bad. It's just that, you know, Gears was good. You know, kind of outdated graphics at this point. And, like, even when they came out, I thought like the graphics were so muddy looking, and that was a trend in the mid 2000s. So around 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, they had to really make a lot of these games like sepia tone and brown colored. Like, everything is muddy and brown, and there's not a lot of color, and that really kind of ticked me off. Like, it made me feel like, the graphics look so crappy. Like, it looks good technically in terms of like the detail. It's a lot more detailed than the PS2 era and the Xbox era and the GameCube era. It looks better than that technically because there's more graphical details. But as far as the color itself, it's so drabby looking. But Gears was a pretty good game on the Xbox 360. I've gotten to like it a little bit more in the past few years. Like, I like it in a more fond way. You know, I remember being really critical of it when I first played it, like, oh, this is really overrated. It's one of the most overrated games ever. But over time, I got to really appreciate it for just the fun factor of the game. It is a genuinely fun game to play. Alright, number 54 is Oblivion. You guys know how I feel about this. Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, a disappointment to me. It has a lot of glitches. Granted, I only have the PS3 versions of the game, so, you know, I can't say anything about the PC version. Maybe the PC version is much better. It probably is because, you know, you can, you know, it's the PC version. You can probably mod things, and you can probably, it doesn't have as much glitches probably, so. But I got the PS3 version. It was just so problematic. It just kept freezing and freezing. The graphics were really good. The music was really good. But, like, you know, graphics and music, just because you have good graphics and music, like Gran Turismo, doesn't mean that the gameplay is, like, super fun. I thought the gameplay was, you know, really slow. Number 55 is Civ 2, Civilization 2. Never got into it, but, you know, it looks pretty cool, I guess. The older Civilization games. Number 56 is Quake, the first Quake. FPS, yes, FPS games like this. I believe this was, I don't want to say, my impression of this game was that it was like a deathmatch only type of game. I'm not sure. I believe like Quake was a character that was from another, like, I don't know, another character from a previous game that the developers worked on. I forget what the developer was called. I think it's oh god, what was it? It's like the same like people that developed that other game with the thing. Well, what are they called again? Hold on, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember history of. Hold on, the history of. Is it id Software or Apogee Realms? It might be Apogee, I think. No, Apogee 3D Realms and id Software. I don't think it's id Software. I think it might be Apogee, but I'm forgetting it now. So anyway, Quake, I never got into it, so I wish I did back in the day. It's one of those cool-looking games that I wish I got into for sure back in the 90s. I was more of an Unreal kind of guy anyway. I got Unreal Tournament 3 on the PS3, and I loved the heck out of that game, so, you know. Unreal was really popular back in the day. I don't remember too many people playing Quake compared to Unreal. Unreal was a pretty popular, like, multiplayer FPS game for the computer back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I remember Unreal being really, really popular. Quake, the first one, was really critically acclaimed, and it was like really popular for, I guess you could call it like the hardcore FPS, like PC crowd of the 90s. Like I imagine the people that played Quake are like the same kind of people that got into Wolfenstein when that came out, or Wolfenstein. I guess Wolfenstein when that when Wolfenstein came out, and like Duke Nukem 3D and Doom when those games came out, and then Quake came out. So it's like a continuation of that legacy. And then Unreal Tournament, and then it just kind of snowballed into other stuff, and then merging with the style of like the GoldenEye 007s on the platform, and the Perfect Darks of the world. So then early 2000s came, and then now you have Time Splitters, the Time Splitters series, and the continuation of the Unreal series, and the other FPS like a Halo, the Halo series, and then the Call of Duty series, and Battlefields and Killzones and all that cool stuff. So yeah, I know a little bit about FPS, although I wish I knew more from the 90s, because that's the era that I missed out on. You know what I mean? I never grew up on those games. I dabbled a little bit. Like I got a little bit of a taste of Duke Nukem 3D back in the 90s, because my friend had, he had it on the PC. But as far as like Doom and all that, Doom and Wolfenstein and Quake, I was very much a newbie. You know what I mean? I was very much an inexperienced. Like I had no idea. I kind of missed out on that whole 90s FPS, aside from the console stuff, like a GoldenEye and Perfect Dark a little bit later on. I forget exactly when Perfect Dark came out, maybe early 2000s. So that tradition of like, multiplayer console thing. I saw it. Even the early Rainbow Six, the first Rainbow Six game, I remember enjoying that on the N64. So I got a chance to actually see some of these FPS, but not quite at the very beginning. Early mid 90s and a little bit of the late 90s. I was more into Nintendo at that point. I was more of a Nintendo gamer and all of that. So alright, we're going to end it off here. This is number 56, kind of an odd number to end it off, but at least we got to go through a little bit of it. I'm going to try to finish the rest of it, 57 all the way up to whatever, 57 to maybe 70 or 80, however I can make it in the next one. So, Part 3 coming soon. Part 3 will continue this top 100 games by Metascore. I'm not sure if I want to make my own list. I guess maybe someday I will. Top 100 games of all time that I personally played in my whole life, but that's going to be a very personal list. It's going to be very customized for me and what I experience, and it's going to be very, very different from this particular list for sure. So, Part 3 coming soon, but this is the end of Part 2. Thank you guys for watching this episode of The Review Space. And check out the channel for more videos and all that. Subscribe, click on the bell button for notifications. Until next time, peace.